13-year-old Courtney Hadwin walked onto the stage of America's Got Talent, and overnight became one of the most talked-about acts on the planet. When the show ended, Simon Cowell stepped in with a record deal most artists spend decades chasing, but Courtney would later describe what happened next as one of the worst experiences of her life. When she finally tried to rebuild what she had lost, a major controversy would shatter everything further and leave the fans and judges who once cheered her on completely heartbroken. How the world met Courtney Hadwin. Every few years, a talent competition produces a moment that stops viewers in their tracks. Sometimes, it is a singer with a voice that defies their age. Sometimes, it is a dancer who moves like no one has ever moved before. But in June 2018, America's Got Talent delivered something the world would never forget. A 13-year-old girl from a small town in England walked onto the stage and sang with a voice that left the judges speechless. Courtney Hadwin became a global sensation overnight, but the same fame that made her would eventually become something else entirely. The audition aired on June 12, 2018. Courtney was 13 years old, and she walked onto the stage looking like any other teenager, nervous and unsure. Before performing, she told the judges she was plagued with stage fright. In fact, she could barely raise her voice to speak to them. Mel B had to encourage her just to begin singing. Courtney chose Otis Redding's Hard to Handle, a classic soul track that demands confidence and swagger, and what followed was a transformation that left everyone in the room stunned. As soon as she started singing, the shy teenager disappeared. Her voice was powerful, her movement electric, and her stage presence unlike anything the judges had seen from someone her age. She dropped to her knees during the performance, a moment that made Simon Cowell exclaim, "Bloody hell," under his breath. Howie Mandel immediately compared her to Janis Joplin. Mel B looked like she could not believe what she was witnessing. When the song finally ended, the audience was on its feet. Howie Mandel did not wait. He walked over to the golden buzzer and pressed it, sending Courtney straight to the live shows. Backstage, he declared that he had never been more excited in his life. He compared her to Dorsey Lynn Farmer, the ventriloquist who had won season 12, and suggested that Courtney was this year's winner. It was the third time Mandel had used his golden buzzer on a singer who went on to become a frontrunner. He had previously pressed it for Grace VanderWaal, the ukulele-playing singer who won season 10. The audition was broadcast to more than 11 million live viewers on NBC, but the real impact came online. Within 1 week, the audition video had been viewed more than 130 million times across social media and streaming platforms. Eventually, that number would surpass 250 million views, making it one of the most watched auditions from season 13. Just like that, Courtney Hadwin was no longer a shy teenager from England. She was a global phenomenon. As the season progressed, she continued to deliver. In the quarterfinals, she performed James Brown's "Papa's Got a Brand New Bag." All 4 judges gave her standing ovations. She advanced to the semifinals alongside Amanda Mena. In the semifinals, she took on Steppenwolf's "Born to Be Wild." She performed with a high-pitched scream and her signature dance moves. Howie Mandel told her she was born to be wild and once again predicted she would be the winner. Simon Cowell called her a bundle of excitement, describing her as raw and messy. He said he had seen her at the beginning of the show shaking like a leaf, and then she came out on stage and turned into something else. That, he said, was why he absolutely loved her. Heidi Klum praised her for bringing gritty rock and roll when most girls her age sang pop. Mel B offered the only critique, noting that she could feel Courtney's nerves during the performance. But the audience disagreed, and she received enough votes to advance to the finals. In the finale, she performed "Could Have Been Me" with the band The Struts, followed by Janis Joplin's "Piece of My Heart." The judges had praised her all season. The audience had voted her through every round. The online views had shattered records, and she was the front-runner to win the $1 million prize. But when the results were announced, something completely unexpected happened. Courtney Hadwin finished in 6th place. The winner was Shin Lim, a close-up magician who had delivered stunning performances throughout the season. A journalist present at the Dolby Theater during the finale later reported that the collective gasps from the audience were deafening when Courtney was eliminated. Fans took to Twitter, calling the result ridiculous and expressing shock that she had failed to even make the top 5. The girl who had been predicted to win from the very first audition was sent home without her trophy. But what happened next was even more shocking than the elimination itself. The girl who had been too shy to speak to the judges, who had transformed into a powerhouse on stage, would begin an extremely challenging journey that no one could have prepared her for. The shocking aftermath and collapse after Courtney Hadwin finished 6th on America's Got Talent. The record deals came quickly. Simon Cowell, the man who had called her a lion on stage, decided to partner with Arista Records to sign her to a multi-contract deal. The announcement was made on December 17, 2018, just months after the finale. Courtney was 14 years old, and she spoke about how super excited and lucky she felt to join the label. Simon Cowell, on his part, said she was an amazing artist, and that he would never forget her first audition. He said it was fantastic, that they now had the opportunity to work closely with her. Everyone seemed excited about the deal, but then shortly before Courtney's 16th birthday, everything fell apart. The labels involved, Sika Music and Arista Records, underwent severe structural changes. Sika Music was winding down its operations around that period, leaving artists without label support. Courtney, who had signed her deal with the expectation of a major label push, was suddenly without a team. The deal that was supposed to launch her career had folded. In interviews years later, she described how the collapse of the label made everything harder. She said she constantly felt like she had to prove herself a little bit more every single day, and that the collapse left her in a more difficult position than before her America's Got Talent appearance. Instead of bouncing back and reinventing herself after the collapse, Courtney began facing a creative identity crisis that no one had prepared her for. After the finale and her signing, she was shuttled into writing sessions with pop-leaning songwriters and producers. These were not the people who understood her sound. She later explained that she was put into big writing camps with songwriters and producers who did not necessarily know her sound. She said she would go into sessions and basically just be given songs she could not relate to at all. She described the music as pure Ariana Grande pop, which, she said, just was not her at all. The music that had made Courtney famous was not pop, it was soul, blues, and rock and roll from a different era. She had discovered her musical identity by watching black and white YouTube videos of James Brown, Tina Turner, Etta James, and Aretha Franklin. She said the moment she realized this was what she wanted to do was after seeing a black and white video of James Brown performing "I Got You, I Feel Good." That was her sound, but the industry wanted something else, something more modern and relatable. But in the process, they nearly erased what made her special. When she finally started creating her own music, there was another challenge. She had to figure out how to make soul and blues sound relatable to the century they were in without sounding too old. It was a delicate balance, and for years she struggled to find it. She was placed in rooms with writers who did not know her, and was forced to navigate an industry that had already discarded her once. The turning point came when she met producer Kevin Bowe. Bowe had credits with Etta James and Joe Cocker. He understood the music that Courtney loved, and she later admitted that this was the moment songwriting truly began to matter. With Bowe, she was finally encouraged to contribute, to actually write alongside him rather than having session writers figure it out for her. It was a different process that required her to open up in ways she had not been asked to before. Courtney later confessed that songwriting had never come naturally to her. Her main priority was just being on stage, but over time something shifted, and now songwriting is something she cannot live without. She worked tirelessly on her debut album, writing since she was approximately 15 years old. In September 2025, the album, titled Little Miss Jagged, was finally released. It was the result of years of struggle, rejection, and creative rediscovery. Even as she was finding her footing as an artist, something absolutely awful was happening online. The same internet that had made her famous began to turn on her, and the accusations that followed were unlike anything she had ever faced. The online trolling and accusations while Courtney Hadwin was trying to find her voice as an artist, the internet was busy trying to take it apart. The same crowd who had watched her audition videos and were absolutely wowed were now scrutinizing every detail of her past. They found footage of her on The Voice Kids UK in 2017, where she had finished in the top 6. They compared her confident performances there to the shy teenager who had barely been able to speak to the judges on America's Got Talent, and they reached a conclusion that spread across social media within hours. Soon online trolls began accusing her of being fake. They said the shy act was a performance designed to maximize shock value when she transformed on stage. The backlash was immediate. After her audition aired, viewers took to Twitter specifically calling out the inconsistency. One user posted that she had been a finalist on The Voice UK, so her act was fake. Others echoed the sentiment. The accusation spread quickly, and for a teenager who had already admitted to struggling with stage fright, the scrutiny became so overwhelming. What the critics did not mention was that America's Got Talent had no rule against contestants with prior competition experience. Courtney was not breaking any rules. In fact, she was not hiding anything. But on the internet, facts did not matter as much as the story people wanted to tell. Courtney's grandfather, Tom Story, came to her defense. He told the Daily Mail that the family had always believed she would do well in the United States. He said they knew the American audience would get her in a way that the UK audience did not. He said they knew she would go down a storm over there. The decision to enter America's Got Talent over Britain's Got Talent was strategic. They believed the United States market would appreciate her rock and roll energy more than the British audience had. While they were right about the reception, they could not have predicted the backlash that would follow. At the time, Courtney was just 14, yet she handled the criticism with a grace that seemed beyond her years. After her elimination, she said that from America's Got Talent, she had learned to not look at all the bad comments and to just concentrate on the positive. She thanked everyone who had voted for her and supported her, adding that she would not have gotten there if it was not for them. She also described being at the live shows as a great experience. This was a mature response from someone who had just been told by millions of strangers that she was a fraud. Yet the accusations did not go away. If anything, they followed her for years. But the trolling that Courtney faced online was not the only bullying she endured. Even after becoming world famous on America's Got Talent, she was bullied by her own school friends. Her classmates reportedly mocked her voice and called her names. She faced taunting at her school in Hesleden, County Durham, at a time when she was supposed to be celebrating her success. Her parents had feared the spotlight specifically because of the bullying she endured at school. They knew what the attention might bring, and they tried their best to protect her. But when you are a teenager, there is no protection from the people you see every day. The accusations of being fake followed her from the moment her audition aired and resurfaced, even after she changed her look. They appeared whenever she did something that did not fit the image people had created for her. And through it all, Courtney kept her head high. She kept writing and performing, and she even released her debut album, Little Miss Jagged, in September 2025, the culmination of years of struggle and growth. But the release of the album did not mark the end of her difficulties, because behind the music, the performances, and the confident stage presence, Courtney Hadwin was fighting a private battle the world didn't know about. Public disappearance and mental health struggles. Between 2019 and 2020, Courtney Hadwin disappeared from the public eye, but not in the usual way artists take a short break to work on new music. She vanished more completely, as if the very industry that once promised to support her had fallen apart around her. She was between 15 and 18 years old during this period. The momentum from the most watched audition in America's Got Talent history had evaporated. The label situation had folded, and the songwriting camps had produced nothing that felt original. Just like that, the girl who had been called a lion, a force of nature, and a future star by the judges was suddenly nowhere to be found. Her followers initially assumed she had quit music entirely, but they did not know that she was fighting to hold on to it. Years later, Courtney described that period as deeply challenging, and she didn't try to sugarcoat it. She confessed that there was a constant pressure to prove she was more than just the girl from that television show.